Okay, so get ready because today we are diving deep into ancient Palestine.
Ooh, sounds exciting.
But not your typical history lesson.
No.
No, not this time. We're going to explore it through this really unique lens. Have you ever heard of the novel Caballo de Troya by J.J. Benítez?
I have, yeah. It's a time travel adventure, right?
Right, but it's so much more than just that. It's packed with, like, real historical details and even some scientific stuff that's just mind-blowing.
Yeah, it's amazing how he blends fact and fiction. You'll find all sorts of stuff in there. Descriptions of the time travel technology, the historical context of Masada, Roman military life, even a look at the Shroud of Turin.
Yeah, the Shroud of Turin, that's a whole rabbit hole in itself.
Totally.
So just imagine this, okay? You're an American military officer, but undercover as a Roman soldier sent back in time on this top-secret mission.
Wow, that's quite a premise.
I know, right? And your destination is first-century Palestine, the mission, to witness the events surrounding Jesus.
Wow, that's quite a historically and theologically loaded assignment.
Yeah, talk about pressure.
So what are the mission objectives?
Well, there are two main ones. First, you have to retrieve a lost microphone from a previous mission.
A lost microphone. So there have been other time travelers before you.
That's what it seems to suggest, yeah. It's like there's this whole hidden history of time travel going on.
That's fascinating.
And the second objective, to document the events surrounding Jesus' death and resurrection.
Wow, so you're not just observing history. You're potentially changing it, too.
Right. And to pull all of this off, the team sets up this really elaborate cover, like a staged archaeological expedition at Masada.
Masada, that ancient fortress overlooking the Dead Sea.
The one and only.
It's a pretty strategic location, right?
Yeah, and they didn't just pick it randomly. Benitez chose Masada very deliberately.
Why is that?
Well, Masada is this powerful symbol of Jewish resistance against the Romans, and that adds this whole other dimension to the story.
I can see how that would make things even more intense.
Right. And Benitez really dives deep into the logistics of how they got all of the time travel equipment up to Masada, which is no easy feat.
Yeah, how did they manage that?
Well, they disguised some of the tech as stone blocks and transported them using this ancient funicular system.
Clever.
Then there were these secret nighttime helicopter drops.
Wait, helicopters? How did they explain that?
Well, they had to be super careful using the cover of darkness and making sure no one saw anything suspicious.
It sounds like something out of a spy movie.
Oh, it totally is. And to make things even more complicated, they had this network of Bedouin camel drivers who were smuggling supplies across the Jordanian border.
So they're blending modern technology with ancient smuggling routes.
Exactly. It's crazy, right?
So how did they communicate? It must have been difficult to coordinate everything.
That's where it gets even more interesting. They used ostraca, those ancient pottery fragments with writing on them.
Right, yeah.
To create this daily code word system.
So they're literally using ancient artifacts to communicate in the past.
I know. It's brilliant. They completely blend into the archaeological context.
It's like they're time-traveling undercover agents.
Pretty much. But let's get back to you, the time traveler. What's it like navigating Roman-occupied Jerusalem? I can only imagine the culture shock.
Must be like stepping into another world.
Right. It's one thing to read about it in history books, but to actually be there, experiencing it firsthand, must be incredible.
Benitez captures the sights, the sounds, the smells of Jerusalem, and the cultural clashes you encounter are fascinating.
Like what? Give me an example.
Well, Roman military protocols are incredibly strict. There's this constant tension as you interact with Roman soldiers who are suspicious of everyone. Then you've got the hustle and bustle of the marketplace, the sheer chaos of it all.
And you're trying to blend in with all of that while also carrying out your mission.
It's a delicate balancing act, for sure.
I remember reading about your encounter with a boy who warns you about a boat's shadow. What was that all about?
That's a great example of how ingrained superstition and religious beliefs were in daily life back then. People genuinely believe these things.
It sounds like something straight out of a myth or a legend.
It does, doesn't it? But for them, it was real.
So you've got time travel, a top-secret mission, ancient history, and a healthy dose of culture shock. Where does the science part come in?
Ah, yes. The science. Well, remember the Shroud of Turin we talked about earlier?
Yeah, the one with the image of Jesus on it.
Exactly. It plays a pretty big role in this story. Benitez weaves in the scientific analysis of the Shroud, highlighting the things that have puzzled researchers for centuries.
Remind me what's so mysterious about the Shroud.
Well, imagine living in the 1st century and suddenly there's this linen cloth with the image of a man on it, right? But here's the thing. The image isn't painted or drawn. It's a photographic negative.
A photographic negative. But photography wasn't invented for centuries after that.
Exactly. And that's just one of the mysteries surrounding the shroud. Then there's the blood type, AB negative, which is rare and adds another layer of intrigue.
A photographic negative in the 1st century? That doesn't make any sense.
Right. And Benítez doesn't really try to explain it away. He presents the findings and lets them speak for themselves.
So it's like he's highlighting the clash between scientific observation and the seemingly supernatural.
Exactly. And that's where you, the time traveler, come in. You're a man of science thrust into a situation that challenges everything you thought you knew.
It's like your entire worldview is being turned upside down.
Pretty much.
So you're caught between your scientific training and what you're seeing with your own eyes. What a wild ride.
It is. And it's only going to get wilder as we delve deeper into the events surrounding Jesus' death and resurrection.
I can't wait to hear what happens next.
Yeah, it's going to get pretty intense. But before we get to all of that, think about this. You're not just, like, dropped into ancient Palestine, you know. You're actually immersed in the social and religious complexities of the time.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot about that. It's not just about the historical setting.
Right. It's about the people, the beliefs, the customs. It's about the whole cultural landscape.
I remember there was a part in the book where you witnessed the Pharisees examining the empty tomb.
Ah, yes, the Pharisees.
They were really worried about touching the burial linens, right? Something about ritual purity.
Exactly. They were incredibly meticulous about adhering to Jewish purity laws, even in the face of something as extraordinary as, well, an empty tomb.
Yeah, you'd think that would take precedence over everything else.
But for them, ritual purity was paramount. They were so concerned about becoming ritually impure that they wouldn't even touch the burial linens themselves.
So what did they do?
They had Roman soldiers do it for them.
Wow, so even with the possibility of a miracle right in front of them, their primary concern was ritual purity.
It really highlights how deeply ingrained these laws and traditions were in their lives. It was a part of their identity.
It's like their worldview was completely different from ours.
It makes you realize that we often interpret things through our own modern lens, but back then, things were seen in a completely different light.
And you, as the time traveler, are caught in the middle of all of this.
It's a constant cultural tug-of-war, trying to blend in, respect their customs, but also you have this mission to accomplish.
It's like walking a tightrope.
And let's not forget about the political situation in Roman-occupied Palestine. Things are pretty tense back then.
Oh yeah, for sure. Benítez definitely doesn't shy away from that aspect of the story.
You see the power dynamics at play, the suspicion, the fear, and the dangers faced by anyone who dared to challenge the Roman authorities.
There's that whole scene with the arrest of Jesus, right?
Yes, that's a pivotal moment.
Yeah.
It shows how intertwined the political and religious aspects of the story really were.
You've got Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, trying to keep order, and then you have the Jewish religious leaders who see Jesus as a threat.
It's a clash of ideologies, really.
And what about Pontius Pilate himself? I remember there was something about him being fascinated by the number 9.
Oh, right. That's one of the interesting details Benítez adds. He portrays Pilate as this complex character, torn between maintaining Roman order and his own sense of justice.
So he's not just a one-dimensional villain?
No, not at all. He's a man of contradictions. He's a powerful Roman official, yet he's also superstitious. And he keeps seeing the number 9 recurring in events related to Jesus.
That's pretty creepy.
It kind of unnerves him, makes him question things.
And it makes him more human, right? Shows that even those in power have their doubts and fears.
Exactly. And as you continue your mission, you see the early Christian movement starting to take shape.
So you're not just witnessing history, you're seeing the birth of a new religion.
Yeah, you see the disciples struggling to grasp the implications of the resurrection, grappling with doubt and fear, and ultimately finding their faith.
I can only imagine how mind-blowing it would be to see all of that unfold right in front of you.
It would completely change your perspective on everything.
But it's not just the disciples, right? There are other people you interact with.
Of course. You see the impact Jesus had on ordinary people, people from all walks of life.
Like who?
Well, there's a shepherd named Cleopas who describes meeting the resurrected Jesus on the road to Emmaus.
I vaguely remember that story.
His account is very simple, but it's incredibly powerful. It shows how Jesus' message resonated with people on a personal level.
It reminds us that this story isn't just about grand theological concepts.
Right. It's about real people experiencing something extraordinary and then trying to make sense of it.
And speaking of extraordinary, let's go back to the Shroud of Turin for a second.
Sure.
Benitez seems to use the scientific evidence, like the blood type and the photographic negative image, as a way to challenge our assumptions about the resurrection.
He does. He presents this evidence that, scientifically speaking, shouldn't exist.
And he doesn't try to explain it away.
No. He leaves it open to interpretation. He asks us to consider the possibility that something beyond our current scientific understanding might have been at play.
It's like he's saying, here's the evidence, what do you make of it?
It's an invitation to think critically, to question, to explore different perspectives.
It makes you wonder if there's more to this story than we realize.
And as you, the time traveler, delve deeper into this mystery, you start gathering information, piecing together clues, and even influencing events around you.
Wait, you can influence events? I thought you were just an observer.
You are, but your presence has an impact, even if it's unintentional.
And you have these conversations with Jesus' family and disciples.
Yep. You learn about his childhood, his personality, things that aren't found in the traditional Gospels.
Like what?
Well, you learn about Mary's perspective on the virgin birth, the skepticism of his siblings, the dynamics of the family.
It really humanizes Jesus, right? Shows him as a real person, not just a divine figure.
And it's not just about learning about Jesus. It's also about you, the time traveler, learning about yourself.
So it's a journey of self-discovery as well.
Absolutely. Your scientific training is constantly clashing with the increasingly unexplainable events you're witnessing.
It's like your whole world is being turned upside down.
It's a process of questioning your assumptions and expanding your understanding of what's possible.
So you're not just observing history, you're becoming a part of it.
And it's changing you in ways you never imagined.
And I bet things are about to take another turn as you get closer to those pivotal resurrection events.
They are. You're about to confront evidence that seems impossible to ignore. Experiencing those resurrection appearances firsthand with all the sensory details and the emotional impact.
This is where things get really intense, right? Your whole understanding of reality is being challenged.
And on top of that, your own body starts reacting to the time travel.
What do you mean?
Benitez adds this element of suspense and danger. It's a reminder that this is a risky experiment. Time travel has consequences.
It's like the book is saying, sure, you want knowledge, but are you prepared for the price you might have to pay?
It highlights the idea that real knowledge comes at a price, that pushing the boundaries of understanding can be dangerous.
It's a bit like the story of Adam and Eve, right? The forbidden fruit of knowledge.
And as you navigate this uncharted territory, what are you relying on? Your instincts, your training, or maybe even a newfound sense of faith? It's a combination of all of those things. You're forced to draw upon everything you have to guide you through this incredible journey.
Wow. So we've gone from ancient history and time travel to a discussion about the nature of knowledge and the price of understanding. I love how this book takes us to unexpected places.
That's the beauty of Benitez's work. He weaves together history, science, spirituality, and creates a narrative that's both intellectually stimulating and emotionally engaging.
And as we head into the final part of our deep dive, I'm eager to see how you, the time traveler, handle the knowledge you've gained. Will you share it with the world or keep it to yourself? I mean, it's like this paradox, right? A man of science, but you're being physically altered by the very thing you're trying to figure out.
Yeah, it's like the mystery itself is leaving its mark on you.
And you know what's interesting? This whole idea of transformation isn't just limited to the time traveler, is it? We see it with the disciples, too.
Oh, absolutely. At first, they're just filled with doubt and fear. But as the story progresses, it slowly gives way to this really profound understanding of what Jesus was saying, the implications of the resurrection.
It's a huge shift for them, isn't it? They go from devastated and confused to becoming like the foundation of a movement that literally changes the world.
Talk about a 180. It really shows the power of belief and how these extraordinary experiences can shape us.
And Benitez doesn't just present this uniform reaction either, does he?
No, not at all. Each of the disciples processes everything in their own unique way. Like you have Peter, who's impulsive, Thomas the doubter, James, who's more practical, and John, who's super insightful. It's a pretty diverse group.
Yeah, it's interesting how he highlights those different personalities.
It's a reminder that even within a close-knit group, there's going to be a whole spectrum of beliefs and experiences.
Especially when you're dealing with something that challenges everything you thought you knew about, well, everything.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And as you're observing all of this, you get to see the early Christian theology developing.
It's like witnessing the birth of a new faith.
With all its intricacies and debates.
Right. It's not just presented as a simple progression either.
No, there's a lot of back and forth.
I remember remember that part where the disciples are arguing about what it actually means to be a follower of Jesus?
Yeah, especially when it comes to Jewish versus Gentile believers. That was a big point of contention back then.
And Benítez doesn't shy away from those conflicts, does he?
No, he shows the messy reality of it all. The early Christian community had its fair share of challenges.
So, after everything you've seen and experienced, you're left with this massive question.
What do you do with this knowledge?
Right. Do you tell the world and risk, I don't know, sounding crazy? Or do you keep it to yourself, protect the secret of what you've seen?
It's a question that goes beyond the novel, don't you think?
Yeah, for sure.
It makes us think about the responsibility that comes with knowledge and the choices we make.
Like, what would I do if I were in the time traveler's shoes? Tough question.
I don't know either. It'd be a lot to process.
So as you're preparing to go back to your own time, what's going through your mind? What's it like to leave all of that behind?
Imagine this. You've traveled through time, you've witnessed these impossible events, and you've been physically changed by it all. And now you're going back. There must be this overwhelming sense of awe, at the sheer mystery of it all.
Yeah, it's a journey that takes you through history and through the depths of human experience.
And now you're carrying all of that back with you.
So what do we take away from all this? What's the big takeaway from Caballo de Troya?
Well, I think it really pushes us to embrace the mysteries around us.
The things we can't explain.
It encourages us to question what we think we know and to stay open to the possibility that there's more out there than we can even comprehend.
It's like a reminder that even fiction can spark our curiosity.
And lead us to a deeper appreciation for history, for science, for the human experience.
And maybe, just maybe, it makes us ask those big questions, the ones that keep us searching for answers.
Like, what if some things are truly beyond explanation? What if reality is much more complex than we ever imagined?
I love how this book and our conversation about it has really pushed us to think outside the box.
That's what we aim for here on The Deep Dive.
To dive deep into these fascinating topics and explore those unanswered questions.
And hopefully spark some curiosity along the way.
Thanks for joining us on this journey through time, history, and the mysteries of the universe.
Until next time, keep exploring.
And keep diving deep.